For 23 years, Lee Young-jun served one of the world's most brutal regimes, not from fear, but from genuine belief. Born into North Korea's elite partisan bloodline, he was the system. Then one night in Tehran, bombs falling outside his window, he opened a safe containing 20 years of classified documents and made a choice that cost him everything. Today, he speaks for the first time about what it truly means to be loyal to a country that was never loyal to you. Join us in standing up for human rights. Subscribe to hear more stories of freedom, stories the world deserves to know. We'll call him Lee Young-jun. That's not his real name. He's living quietly now, staying off the radar after surviving an assassination attempt. I hope you'll understand why I'm protecting his identity. Lee Young-jun's grandfather fought alongside Kim Il-sung against the Japanese in the forests of Manchuria, a generation of partisans. In North Korea, that bloodline has a name, the Paektu lineage. Think of it like being born into royalty. If royalty came with a political guarantee stamped on your soul. From that family, Young-jun graduated top of his class from Pyongyang University of Foreign Studies, was recruited into the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and spent 23 years serving the regime. As first secretary at the North Korean embassy in Tehran, he was the pipeline between Pyongyang and Tehran, missile blueprints flowing one direction, oil and hard currency flowing back. He wasn't just part of that arrangement. He was the arrangement. Kim Jong-un trusted him personally. Then came the night of June 2025. Israeli jets crossed the Tehran sky, and Lee Young-jun stood alone in front of the embassy safe. Inside that safe, 20 years of classified documents, missile schematics, uranium enrichment records, bank accounts used to launder money around international sanctions, the kind of material that would bring the UN Security Council to a standstill. He wasn't there to protect it. He was there to take it out and hand it to a South Korean intelligence officer. So what happened? How does a man who was, by every measure, a perfect loyalist choose the night bombs are falling to walk away? Let me take you through it, one step at a time. The first home Young-jun remembers an apartment in Pyongyang's Cheonggu district overlooking the Taedong River. He still sees it clearly. On one wall, a black and white photo of his grandfather, standing next to Kim Il-sung. Below it, a small shelf with an anti-Japanese partisan medal in a glass case. Every time young Young-jun leaned in to look at it, his father would say, "That is our family's foundation. Never forget it." Now, for those of you who might not know how significant that is in North Korea, imagine if your family had a documented connection to the founding fathers, and that connection meant better housing, better food rations, and study abroad. Opportunities, all as a birthright. In North Korea, a partisan bloodline isn't history, it's currency. His father worked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. His mother lectured for the Korean Workers' Party propaganda department. Even dinner table conversation was measured and ideologically correct. It would start with, "Today the great general has said." Young-jun never questioned any of it. Doubt wasn't something he'd been taught to feel. He studied at Mangyongdae Myeongnak School, then entered Pyongyang University of Foreign Studies, where he majored in Arabic and graduated first in his class. A senior official from the ministry came to see him. "With your family's background, of course we want you." The day he received his ministry assignment, his father said nothing, just patted him once on the back. That was the biggest celebration his father knew how to give. His mother wept without making a sound. Young-jun's postings went like this: Pyongyang headquarters, then Syria, then Iran. He arrived in Tehran in 2002. That was 23 years ago. In Tehran, he was, by any measure, exceptional, fluent in Arabic and Farsi, deep relationships with senior commanders in Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. He was at the center of a channel that moved missile components and assembly technology from Pyongyang to Tehran and moved foreign currency and oil in return. Back in Pyongyang, they called him the Tehran Pipeline. Word circulated that Kim Jong-un had mentioned him by name, the most reliable comrade in the Middle East. When colleagues called him their pride, he'll tell you now that he's ashamed to admit it, but back then it felt genuinely good. Fall 2025. Israeli airstrikes hit Iran's nuclear facilities. The operation was called Roaring Lion. Columns of fire rose from the outskirts of Tehran. That night, Lee Young-jun stood alone on the embassy roof. Sirens below. The sky flashing red, then going dark, then red again. He'd caught the scent of war before the Middle East. Always had gunfire somewhere on the horizon. His posting in Syria had nights like this. But this was different. It wasn't just different, he said later. Something inside me gave way, like a circuit breaker tripping, just off. The next morning, orders came down from Pyongyang: don't waver, maintain the cooperation channels, keep contact with senior IRGC leadership. Reading those orders, something shifted in him. Tehran was under attack. Iranian staff were terrified. Civilians were scrambling for shelters. And Pyongyang's first concern was, is the weapons pipeline still intact, not people? The deal. That might sound like standard tradecraft too. A diplomat does his job, emotions aside. Young Jun tried to think of it that way, but it didn't hold. Because what he'd watched from that rooftop wasn't just an explosion. The IRGC commander who died that night was someone he'd worked beside for nearly 2 decades. They'd eaten together, exchanged holiday greetings about each other's families, and in one night that man was gone. After that, Young Jun started spending time alone. The embassy rooftop became his spot. Tehran's skyline was still beautiful. Azadi Tower glowing in the distance, the Alborz Mountains, cutting a dark silhouette against the sky. He'd stand there and think. And once you start thinking, it doesn't stop. At first, small things. Why didn't Pyongyang send so much as a condolence note for a partner we'd worked with for 20 years? Diplomatic calculation, maybe. But the thinking kept going. What have I actually been doing here for 23 years? He'd transferred weapons technology, missile schematics that passed through Iran to Houthi forces in Yemen, and those weapons flew over civilians. He'd known that, and called it his mission, called it service to his country. Had it been? Or had it been revenue generation for the Kim family dressed up as patriotism? Somewhere along the way, that line had blurred and he hadn't noticed when, that winter, he said nothing to his wife, Sunhua. She was sharp. 20 years living in foreign postings will do that to you. She knew he'd been going blank over meals, not sleeping. But she didn't ask. In a North Korean diplomat's household, you don't ask. Even between husband and wife, the deepest rooms stayed locked. Survival required it. But Sunhua was watching. By the end of that winter, Young Jun had made up his mind, though he had no plan yet. One thing was clear: I cannot go back to Pyongyang. Then came the order that made everything collapse into focus. Spring 2025, a classified cable from Pyongyang arrived. Lee Young-jun was being promoted, elevated to counselor of the Tehran embassy, and named sole director of Phase 2 of the North Korea-Iran Military Technology Cooperation Program. 4-year posting. Family accompaniment permitted. Colleagues congratulated him. Sunhua smiled. Young Jun went cold. Let me explain what Phase 2 meant. Phase 1 had been the missile components, the drone assembly transfers serious enough but established. Phase 2 was something else entirely. After Israeli strikes crippled Iran's nuclear facilities, Tehran had quietly begun rebuilding its nuclear weapons program. North Korea was going to provide the technology, uranium enrichment centrifuge designs, warhead miniaturization, the kind of cooperation that would trigger an emergency session at the UN Security Council if it ever surfaced. And Young Jun would be responsible for all of it. If it succeeded, he'd be a hero in Pyongyang. If it was ever exposed, he'd be a war criminal. But the darkest part wasn't either of those outcomes. He already knew what happened to people who ran programs like this, people who knew too much. The system doesn't let them retire. They either stay frozen in place forever or they disappear. A 4-year term. And then what? He lay awake listening to Tehran's spring rain, soft, barely audible against the window. He thought about his mother back in Pyongyang, 75 years old, living alone. His father gone. His brothers scattered in the provinces. On holidays, Young Jun would call. She always said the same thing. Are you healthy? That's all I need to know. Short calls, long ones attracted surveillance. In those few words, everything was compressed. If I leave her behind, the thought wouldn't go. 3 days later, a text arrived on his personal phone. Unknown number. A short message in Farsi: tomorrow, 11 a.m. Ballad Cafe window seat. Come alone. Young Jun read it 3 times, then deleted it. Ballad Cafe sat in northern Tehran, quiet, frequented occasionally by diplomats, and far enough from the embassy that surveillance was lighter. Whoever sent the message knew he knew the place. He had a strong suspicion who it was. More than suspicion. The next morning, he told Sunhua he was going to meet an IRGC contact. She nodded. He didn't take the embassy car. He walked and flagged a cab. At the cafe, a man was already at the window seat, early 50s. He moved through Tehran as an employee of a Korean construction company. Young Jun had crossed paths with him a few times, never spoken, but he knew what this man was. People in the same line of work recognize each other. They ordered coffee. Silence. Then the man spoke low in Korean. "My name is Mr. Park. I think you already know what I represent." Young Jun looked at his cup. His heart was running fast. 23 years of trained composure. He still doesn't know exactly how much of it held in that moment. "We can help you." A pause. "My mother is in Pyongyang," Young Jun said. Mr. Park nodded. That was enough. They both understood where this conversation was going. Walking back through Tehran's spring streets, the wind off Azadi Square. Still carrying a chill, Young Jun turned Mr. Park's words over and over. Mr. Park hadn't given a long speech. He hadn't needed to. Just this. Right now is the best window. You need to decide before the end of June. After that, we can't guarantee anything. The reason American and Israeli strikes on Iran were escalating. Soon, Tehran would descend into full chaos. That chaos was the window. Once it passed, North Korea's internal security service, the Boibu, would tighten its grip. The IRGC would lock down foreign movement. Now or never. Young Jun looked at his hand while walking. It was trembling slightly. That night, he told Sunhwa. She was at the sink washing dishes. She didn't turn around. What kind of person? Someone named Mr. Park. His job, I think you already know. Long silence. She finished the dishes, dried her hands, then turned and looked at him. 20 years as a diplomat's wife. She read rooms before words. You're thinking about your mother. He couldn't speak. I've been thinking about it too. For a long time. That landed harder than anything else. He hadn't been carrying it alone. They'd been carrying it separately in the same house for years, because in a North Korean diplomat's family, even the person closest to you is someone you guard yourself from. Think of it like families during Japan's colonial occupation of Korea, people who had to watch every word even inside their own homes. It wasn't much different. Days passed. He couldn't decide. The reason was one thing, only his mother. In North Korea, when someone defects, the family left behind faces collective punishment, yonjaje. It's not a policy on paper. It's reality. Their party membership is stripped. They're forcibly relocated to the most desolate areas of the country. In severe cases, they're sent to political prison camps. A 75-year-old woman. His legs went weak every time he thought about it. Then one night, Sunhwa said, "Be honest with me. What kind of life do you think your mother is living right now?" He couldn't answer. "Last month, I called her for her birthday." "Do you know what she said?" Sunhwa's voice was steady. "Sunhwa, I've already lived my life. All I need is for you children to live well. Do you know what that means?" Young Jun closed his eyes. She had known. His mother had known this moment would come someday, and she'd given her blessing. The only way she could, sideways through the static of a monitored international call. A 75-year-old woman telling her son to go while she stayed, saying goodbye in the only language the system allowed her. Young Jun cried for the first time that night, out loud. And then he decided. He contacted Mr. Park. They met again, not the cafe this time. A small park in northern Tehran. Sitting side by side on a bench, they got specific. "How many in your family?" "My wife and me." "What do you need to bring?" "Passports. And the safe key." Mr. Park paused. "The safe key?" Young Jun nodded. "The embassy safe holds 20 years of documents between Pyongyang and Tehran. Nuclear technology exchanges, missile cooperation meeting minutes, sanction evasion accounts. That has to be worth something in the negotiation." Mr. Park's expression didn't change, but his eyes did. "When can you move?" Young Jun looked up at the Tehran sky. High and blue. It reminded him of the sky above the Yalu River in Sinwiju back home. He had no idea why that came to him in that moment. But it did. "If an opportunity opens in June, I'll contact you." Friday, June 13th, 2025. Just after 2 a.m. Young Jun was at his desk, unable to sleep when the window shook. His first thought was an earthquake. Then came the explosions, not one, but a sequence starting distant, rolling closer, growing louder. Israeli jets over Tehran. A massive operation targeting nuclear facilities, IRGC headquarters, military command centers. Multiple senior Iranian military commanders died that night. Columns of fire rose across the city. Civilians poured into underground shelters. Embassy staff woke up, voices in the corridors. The Boibu monitor began counting personnel. At 4 a.m., an urgent cable from Pyongyang, all personnel prepare for immediate return. Leave Iran within 4 days. Young Jun's hands stopped. 4 days. He and Mr. Park had agreed on sometime in June. He hadn't expected it like this. The detailed plan wasn't finished. He hadn't fully briefed Sun Hua. He hadn't worked out how to get the documents out. Shinge. He went into the bathroom, ran the tap. Against the sound of the water, he sent a text to the emergency number Mr. Park had given him. In Farsi. Short. Tonight. The reply came in 3 minutes. 3 p.m. Same place. Vehicle waiting. He turned off the phone screen and looked in the mirror. A stranger's face looked back. 23 years carved into those features. After today, that face would belong to someone else entirely, in every sense of the word. Breakfast in the embassy cafeteria. He ate with colleagues. Conversations about last night's strikes, how Iran might retaliate when they'd all be back in Pyongyang. Normal talk. Young Jun ate slowly. This might be the last meal in this room, the last morning with these people, but nothing could show. 23 years had given him one thing above all else, the ability to keep his face still. After breakfast, on the way back to his office, he caught Sun Hua's eye across the hallway. She looked at him, a question in her gaze. Is it today? The slightest nod. She turned away without a word. All morning he worked. Stamped documents. Drafted a return preparation report. Normal. Unremarkable. He said he'd eat lunch alone, his stomach was off, he hadn't slept. Both true. On a P. He went down to the basement document storage room. Only counselor-level staff and above held that safe key. The room was empty. He opened the safe. Everything neatly arranged. He took only what he'd already decided on in his head. 6 folders on nuclear technology exchanges between North Korea and Iran. 2 folders of sanction evasion account records. 3 folders of missile cooperation meeting minutes. He slid them into the leather document bag he always carried. Locked the safe. His hands were sweating. His back, too. Coming up the stairs, he ran into the Bowie-Boo monitor. Counselor, where have you been? Young Jun shifted the bag naturally to his side. Just organizing documents for the return. The monitor nodded and walked on. He went into the inner room. Sun Hua was ready. 2 passports, a bundle of cash, 1 small bag. They'd left the large suitcase propped visibly in the embassy. Corridor, it looked like part of the return preparations. They stood facing each other for a moment. No words. Sun Hua spoke first. Call your mother. Once. He hesitated. A call leaves a record. But not calling meant leaving without a single word. He dialed. 3 rings. 4. She picked up. Young Jun. Mother. It's me. Are you well? I'm well. How's Iran? Complicated. I just wanted to hear your voice. A short silence. Young Jun, live well. All right? That was all. 4 words. But he heard everything inside them. She knew. This was the last call and she knew it. And that was the only goodbye she could give him. Yes, mother. Stay healthy. He hung up. 1 tear. Sun Hua took his hand. They turned and walked out. 3 p. They told the staff they were stepping out briefly to check on supply. Logistics a common errand during return preparations. They walked through the embassy's front gate. The Bowie-Boo monitor watched from behind. Young Jun didn't look back. Same pace. Not fast, not slow. 2 blocks. In an alley, a black car was parked. The window came down slightly. Mr. Park. They got in. The car pulled out slowly. Somewhere in the distance, another explosion. The Tehran sky burned red. The car was quiet. Mr. Park drove. In the passenger seat was a man who looked Iranian, a local contact who worked with Korean intelligence. In the back seat, Young Jun and Sun Hua sat side by side. About 10 minutes out, Mr. Park reached back without a word and handed them something. 2 Iranian passports. Different names. Different faces except not, because the photos were theirs. From today, you are these people. Young Jun opened his passport. A Persian name he'd never carried. His own face under someone else's identity. Lee Young Jun, the man who had existed for 47 years, vanished from the paper. The car headed west out of Tehran toward the Iran-Iraq border. For those wondering why Iraq, it's the same logic as defectors. Crossing into China and moving through Southeast Asia, this route ran through Iraq, then into Jordan. The U.S. maintains influence in Iraq. South Korean diplomatic channels are open in Jordan. It was the safest path available. Tehran to the Iraqi border is roughly 280 miles, about 5 hours. But that was only the first leg. Then Baghdad, then Amman. More than 16 hours total. As the city fell away, the landscape turned barren. The Zagros Mountains emerged jagged rock faces, switchback roads. Young Jun watched out the window. He felt nothing, or everything at once, which amounted to the same thing. Sun Hua held his hand without speaking. 3 hours in, a checkpoint appeared ahead. Revolutionary Guard. After the strikes, Iran had tightened every major road. Foreign nationals were scrutinized. The car stopped. 2 soldiers approached. The local contact spoke in Farsi. They asked for passports. 4 were handed over, along with ID cards and foreign resident documents Mr. Park had prepared. A soldier leaned in and looked at the back seat. His eyes found Young Jun's. "Those few seconds," Young Jun said later, "were the longest of my life." Every year of diplomatic training narrowed to a single point. He shifted his gaze toward the window. Just a tired traveler. Nothing more. The soldier handed the passports back, waved them through. The car moved. Young Jun exhaled. Sun Hua's grip tightened. "Mr." Park's voice from the front, barely above a whisper, "Well done." They crossed into Iraq at dusk. The border was more chaotic than expected. Displaced people flowing in from Iran, guards overwhelmed. 4 people in a quiet car slipped through without incident. The moment his foot touched Iraqi soil, Young Jun felt something strange. Not relief. Not joy. Just emptiness, the hollow ache of having held something tightly for a very long time, and finally letting it go. They drove through the night toward Jordan. Iraq's desert sky was staggering, stars so dense they looked like they might fall. He thought of the Yalu River in Sinui Ju and the sky he'd watched as a boy. Same stars, different ground. They crossed into Jordan just before dawn. Amanat morning. "A safe house, mister." Park had arranged an ordinary apartment, old sofa, an air conditioner that rattled. Young Jun and Sun Hua sat side by side on that sofa, said nothing. Then Sun Hua spoke. "I'm hungry." He laughed. Couldn't help it. After everything, bombs, checkpoints, burning sky, a farewell call to his mother. The first words out of her mouth were, "I'm hungry." He laughed and cried at the same time. "Mister." Park brought bread and water. The 3 of them ate together. Morning light pressed through the curtains. Bright white. "How long until South Korea?" Young Jun asked. "There's a process. Take your time. You're safe now." "Safe." He turned the word over. It echoed a long time. 23 years. The first time I've heard that word. He landed at Incheon Airport in the summer of 2025. Coming through the arrivals gate, Young Jun stopped. His knees buckled not from weakness, but from something he couldn't push through. Sun Hua steadied him by the arm. The arrivals hall was completely ordinary. People walking, luggage wheels rolling, a child crying somewhere. To Young Jun, that ordinariness was incomprehensible. 23 years, and he was standing outside. North Korea's control for the first time. It didn't feel real. A South Korean intelligence officer was waiting. He extended his hand. "Welcome. You've been through a lot." Young Jun couldn't say a word. He nodded. The months at Hanawon followed. For those unfamiliar, Hanawon is a resettlement education center for North Korean defectors, run by South Korea's Ministry of Unification, located in Anseong, Gyeonggi Province. New arrivals learn how South Korean society works, get registered, begin their legal lives. For the first time, Young Jun watched South Korean news freely, used the internet without restriction. He searched North Korean diplomat defection. No results about himself. He breathed easier. His identity was still protected. One day, a Hanawon instructor asked, "What kind of life do you want from here?" He thought for a while. "Just an ordinary one." The instructor smiled. "Almost everyone who comes here says exactly that. And honestly, it's the hardest thing to build." After Hanawon, he and Sun Hua settled in Seoul. Everything was new. The convenience store. He had no idea what it was at first. A shop open at midnight. It seemed impossible, like something for a child to marvel at. At 2 a.m. One night, he woke up hungry and nudged Sun Hua. She came back with instant noodles in a plastic cup, hot water poured in. Lid pressed down. 3 minutes. Those 3 minutes. Something about them broke him open. He cried while waiting for the noodles to cook. A world where small things are small. He hadn't known it could feel like that. The first time he walked into a large grocery store, he stood at the entrance for 5 minutes. Shelves stacked to the ceiling. Dozens of varieties of crackers alone. In North Korea, a single bag of crackers in a holiday ration was something the whole family stretched across days. Standing there, surrounded by all of it, the past and present. pressed against each other and he felt dizzy. Sun Hua pushed the cart over. What do you want to get? He stood a long time. Next time. They left. The hardest thing in Seoul was the language. He spoke Arabic and Farsi fluently, and yet South Korean was strange to him. Decades of division had split even the way people talk. His northern accent drew stares. Clerks sometimes couldn't follow what he said. Same people, same language, 50 years apart, and it had become two different tongues. That was both baffling and quietly heartbreaking. He watched television obsessively, dramas, news, anything. He imitated the cadence. After about 6 months, something clicked. He asked a store clerk where something was. Got directed immediately. Walked home and bragged to Sun Hua. She laughed. You speak Arabic and Farsi and you're this excited about Korean? They laughed together. A long time since either of them had done that. But at night, his mother came back. After he walked out of the embassy, contact with Pyongyang was severed completely. His defection was discovered the following day. What Young-jun later learned through South Korean intelligence channels. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs immediately stripped his title. His family's partisan record, his grandfather's medal, the photograph, all of it was expunged. And his mother, he doesn't know. Collective punishment likely, where she was relocated or whether something worse happened. The South Korean government has been working through channels, but as of now, there is no confirmed information. Every night, Young-jun looks at a photograph on his phone, an old picture sent from Sinuiju. His mother is standing along the Yalu River smiling. Behind her, apricot blossoms spring, probably, blurred in the background. He looks at that photo and says, Mother, I'm doing well. Don't worry. The news still carries the war in. Iran, American, and Israeli strikes ongoing, Iranian counterstrikes, the whole region shaking. Every time he watches, he wonders, what if it hadn't happened? He would have returned to Pyongyang on command, taken the directorship of Phase 2, and someday quietly ceased to exist. The war saved him. And yet he'll say this, I'm not the only one. There are far more still inside. People I worked beside for 23 years, my colleagues at the ministry, their families, they aren't villains. There are people living inside a system. They deserve to be free someday too. And this, when reunification comes, the first place I'm going is Sinuiju. I'll find my mother's grave along the Yalu River. In the spring when the apricot blossoms are out. Thank you for staying with this story to the end. It might feel like something from a distant city you've never been to, but I don't think it's someone else's story. Those of you who lived through or carry the Korean War in your memory who know what division actually cost, you'll understand what it meant for Lee Young-jun to hear his mother's voice and hold back tears. The system cages people, but it can't cage the human heart forever. That's what he proved on that burning night in Tehran. He paid an enormous price for a single step toward freedom, and he took it anyway. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and like if this story meant something to you.